Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Cadet First Class 𝐜𝐨𝐬𝐢𝐴, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to the National Character and Leadership Symposium. Our session features Colonel John Blocher, United States Air Force. Colonel Blocher is the commander of the 93rd Air Ground Operations Wing at Moody Air Force Base, Georgia. He graduated from the United States Air Force Academy in 1999, where he later became a senior pilot in the A-10 Warthog and the T-38. He has over 1,500 flying hours, with 150 of those as combat hours in support of Operation Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom. His accomplishments earned him the Bronze Star for Heroism and the Air Force Commendation Medal with Valor. Prior to his assignment at Moody Air Force Base, he was the commander of the 1st Air Support Operations Group at Joint Base Lewis McChord, Washington. He is married to Miss Jamie Hatch, class of 1999, and they have 3 sons, Cole, Cooper, and Jack, who's currently a cadet at the United States Air Force Academy. Please join me in welcoming Colonel John Blocher.
Good job, Creed. So that was the view out of the back of my armored personnel carrier on April 6th, 2003. Operation Iraqi Freedom had kicked off about 2-3 weeks earlier. We were in about our 5th or 6th battle. I was an embedded JTAC, Joint Terminal Attack Controller, in the lead battalion of the lead brigade of the lead division, the 3rd Infantry Division, pushing into Baghdad that day. On that day, we did a forward passage of lines at about 10 in the morning. I was popped out of the back of a 113 armored personnel carrier, M4 in hand, radio in hand, aircraft overhead. I was the only show in town. We were the primary force pushing into the north of Baghdad, and I was the lead JTAC. As it started to get hot, we did our forward passage of lines, and we started to take our first fire. Up to that point, it was basically RPG and small arms. But on that day, it was going to get a little bit hotter. I had A-10s overhead. I had sectored the target north, so I had F-15s off to the north that were dropping JDAMs and other weapons on targets that were beyond line of sight. I had a F-14 from the Navy that was overhead doing forward air control duties airborne, and we were working together. Because I had aircraft 2-ship after 2-ship after 2-ship started to show up because we started to find so many targets. I was on about my 4th or 5th set of A-10s when it started to get a little bit hotter, and Andy, the fire support officer, he was an artillery guy. He was standing back to back with me in that APC. He grabs me by the back of my body armor and pulls me down into the vehicle. And he says, "Coke, it's too hot out there. You got to keep your head down. We're taking too much fire. You're not paying attention because you're talking to the aircraft. You're not returning fire. Keep your head down." And I could start to hear the pings of shrapnel on the outside of the vehicle. But I knew that I had to keep my battalion safe. I knew that that lead Abrams tank was moving rapidly. And I knew that there was lots of targets out front. In fact, I had aircraft asking me, "Can you slow your advance? We're finding target after target." So I got on the radio and I called my battalion commander. "Sir, can we slow down? I just need a little bit more time to roll in on these targets." His response was, "Advance 3-3. I'll see what I can do, but I don't think we can halt. But you need to take care of those things as fast as possible." I needed to get my eyes on the aircraft because what I kept doing was updating the frontline trace of our lead element to make sure that they constantly looked out front of our lead target, our lead tank. I passed coordinates. I constantly kept them updated, and every time they rolled in, it was my job to get eyes on to make sure that their nose was pointed in the right direction and they were taking out the right targets. And about when one started to roll in on my 3rd or 4th pass is when the world exploded. A 152 millimeter round of enemy artillery landed right behind my 113. It threw us up into the air, and the explosion slammed me against the front of the bulkhead, slammed me back. I dropped my radio, tried to pick it back up. Andy behind me is screaming, "Go, go, go," to our driver, so we're speeding up as fast as we can as the 2nd round lands. This one feels like it's physically underneath the APC, and the whole thing goes up into the air. I get jostled around again, but I know that I've got to get my eyes on that A-10 because he just called in. I have to see him. But I also know that artillery never comes in ones, it never comes in twos, it always comes one more time. And I have no doubt, based upon how close the first one was and how close the second one was, that the next one is coming directly in the top of my vehicle, and I feel fear. The bile in my stomach starts to rise. I feel that I can't talk. My voice is going to crack. I don't know if I can do this. And as I contemplate what I think is the last seconds of my life, I ask, what do I want to be doing with those seconds? If this is all I got left, what do I want to do with those last seconds? And I decide that I want more than anything else to be doing my job and to be doing it well and to be decisive on a battlefield. And so I swallow hard. I poke my head out, knowing that maybe I'll take a round. Maybe the next round of artillery is coming in. And I key the mic. Thrash 4-3. This is advanced 3-3. Cleared hot. And for some reason, by the grace of God, that next round never came. Good afternoon. My name's Colonel John Blocher, and I am an incredibly ordinary Air Force Academy graduate. I am not special. I've never testified in front of Congress. I've never accepted some amazing award from a 4-star, and my life is not going to be made into a movie. I've received no real special training. I'm a lot like the rest of my classmates. The class of '99. Gold will shine. Committed, driven. I'm a lot like you. You see, 30 years ago, I sat in those seats. I sat right there and I listened to people like me stand on stage and regale me with tales of glory. I remember sitting there and thinking as captains and colonels and generals spoke to us and thinking, man, if I could just have those experiences, if I could just do those things, that would be so cool. I would have such a fulfilled life. My career would be so great. I just wanted to do those things. Well, you know what? I didn't do any of those things. I wrote my own story. And so will you. Your life, like mine, will be filled with highs and lows. It will be filled with challenges. It will be filled with things that you do awesome and probably some failures too. It will be filled maybe with some heroic actions, and maybe you'll find yourself one day standing on this stage having this moment just like me. But along the way, you're going to write your own story. It's not going to be just like mine. It'll be filled with highs and lows and maybe some heroics. It will be filled with some failures. And I have learned that I have to learn from those failures. I have to grow from those failures. I have to be better from those failures. I have to have the courage to get up. I'd like to tell you the story of one of those failures. I'm the guy on the right. Let's just pick up where we were. So there I was, rolling north in the middle of a battle, thinking I'm about to die, and I just kept going. I said cleared hot more times than I can imagine. I continued to control aircraft. We took a right-hand turn and headed towards our final objective, which was a bridge over the Tigris River. This is the furthest north bridge in Baghdad. And specifically, that objective was ours because we knew we needed to stop any sort of retreat of the Republican Guard. We wanted to trap them, and we wanted to defeat them, and we wanted to take Baghdad. We got to that objective, and it was surprisingly quiet. We arrayed along the west side of the Tigris River, planning to link up with the Marines that were supposed to come on the east side, but they were running a couple days late. So we hunkered down on the west side, trained our guns towards it, and my battalion commander said, "Coke, we're going to pull back because things are pretty calm right now." So we consolidated forces, we set up our TOC, we started to bring forward our supply lines, and that is when two things happened simultaneously. The first one, I got a radio call from that company commander, because he has started to take fire. As soon as we pulled back is when the battle started. The company commander knew what I brought to the fight, and he said, "Coke, we're in a pretty bad spot here. They've taken advantage of the fact that we're low on gas, we're low on ammo, we're hunkered down and we're behind berms, and they're shooting us from the other side of the river. I can't see them. And for the first time, we're taking accurate tank fire. We're taking accurate crew-served weapon fire. And my company commander that I am supposed to be embedded with is scared." And at the same time, inside our perimeter, back where I had pulled back about 2 clicks from that front lines, we got ambushed. Inside our perimeter, the enemy pops up, blows up one of our tanker trucks, 20,000 pounds of gas. That's a large explosion. And right behind it, what catches on fire is our ammo truck. Awesome. We are trying to re-maneuver our forces so that we are able to return fire when they are inside our perimeter, while I am trying to simultaneously call in aircraft to support our lead company that's in the worst spot it's been in so far in the war. And I get on the radio, and because I was the only show in town, my other JTAC said, "He's got it." And in seconds, I had 2 A-10s overhead. As a JTAC, when you get new aircraft that show up, you do this thing, it's called authentication. They give you this alphanumeric piece of paper, they give the same one to the pilot, and when they show up, you authenticate to make sure that you're not getting spoofed. Well, on that day, authentication was really easy, because the first radio call to me, advanced 3-3, this is 𝐷MOB 7-1, 2 by Alpha 10s, showing up, 30 minutes of playtime, standard SCL. It's the most distinct and obvious voice I've ever heard in my life. A guy named Donk Strasburger. His wingman, Billy Bob Thornton, my flight commander, and the director of operations of the 75th Fighter Squadron, of which I was a member. I knew them well. I knew I could trust them. I knew they were going to be there for me. And I knew that though I was in one of the worst spots I could be in, that I had the right people to support. It didn't matter that the weather was crap, 6,000-foot overcast, 1.5 miles of visibility. Donk flipped on his back, pointed his nose to the ground, popped through the weather. Billy Bob right behind him. I talked him on to the targets. He used the Tigris River as a funneling feature, so he found those targets. And as I returned fire with my M4 and we got that situation under control, I said cleared hot over and over and over again. And 33 minutes later, there was 7 burning tanks and APCs on the east side of the river. And my radio call to Donk sounded a lot like, "Donk, you kind of just saved our butt. We were in a pretty bad spot, and right now, we're not receiving any fire whatsoever." He had braved crappy weather. He had braved AAA that went from very minimal to a sky that looked like something out of a World War II movie. And the next time I saw him back at home, they were pinning a silver star on his chest. I cleared him off. The visibility was so bad, the situation calmed down again. And I knew that the sun was going down, and so we decided to hold the rest of our aircraft high and get a bunch of coordinates. So we started to map out the area, get coordinates, and bring in aircraft with JDAMs so we could drop them through the weather. JDAM was brand new. We had barely had the things. It was the first time I ever dropped a JDAM was in combat. And so it started to settle down, the sun set. We waited through the night. And I remember at some point, pretty late in that night, the chaplain comes up to me. It's a Romanian army chaplain, gruff, thick accent. He grabs me by the body armor, looks me in the eyes. "Air Force, you must take break." He was right. I had been controlling for about 16 hours straight. So I put my radio down, assessed the situation, handed off control to somebody else, one of my other JTACs that was in one of the other companies, who cleared him off pretty quickly because it was pretty quiet. And I walked inside the building that was right there. It was a surreal moment because I walked inside what was like a corporate headquarters. It was very clean. And for the first time in 2 months, I turned on running water and washed my hands, washed my face, took off my helmet, sat down in a comfortable chair and said, "All right, going to give myself about an hour. That'll be about when the sun's coming back up. Sat down, head back, eyes closed. The sound of an A-10 strafing is incredibly obvious and distinct. It's indistinguishable. You know exactly what it is. That Bert, you know exactly what it sounds like. And I wake up to that. And I know immediately something is not right. I know immediately that this is not what I expected. I jump up, throw on my helmet, walk outside, walk directly to the back of my vehicle, and I see something that does not compute. It does not make sense in my head. I see hanging out of the back of my vehicle on my radio a lieutenant colonel wearing a desert flight suit speaking on my radio. And as I walk up, I hear him using my call sign. And I'm thinking to myself, why? And the first radio call that happens as I walk up to him is, "Two's hit, female voice. Chaff flare, come west. Pick your nose up, KC. Male voice, Bino Turner, my squadron commander, recognized it right away. This lieutenant colonel that was just doing battlefield circulation, he was just coming up to check on me. He was the squadron commander of the ASOS that I was embedded with. But he had spent the entire war in the back, and he'd just come forward, and he didn't know. He didn't know that we had tons of AAA. He didn't know that you really shouldn't run in from south to north because you were going to get shot up. He didn't know that the situation on the ground was so dynamic that maybe bringing A-10s below the weather wasn't the greatest idea. He didn't know, and I wasn't there to explain it to him. And so when Bino calls back and says, "My number 2 man's hit, we're out of here," his only response is, "Copy that. Good luck," as he hands the radio back to me, and he walks away. And I am sitting there with a knot in my stomach going, what could have I done? Could I have regret? It feels like something in the pit of your stomach. In 24 hours, I had experienced fear and I had overcome it. In that same 24 hours, I had been decisive in an operation where I had saved my battalion. And in that same 24-hour period, now, did I have the courage to overcome this? It felt like a failure. But the interesting thing is, that failure for me was somebody else's heroic moment. You might have heard of her. Her name's Captain Casey Campbell, and she did the unthinkable. She flew that A-10 that she got shot up in all the way back to Kuwait in manual reversion. It's pulleys, it's cables, it's incredibly difficult to fly. Somehow she pulled her nose up, somehow she chaffed and flared, somehow she got away from the threat. She flicked it into manual reversion, she flew all the way home, and she landed it heroically. My greatest regret, failure, was her greatest success. And I got lots more stories. I could tell you more of them. I could tell you about the time that I was in the middle of a sandstorm, and it was horrific. You couldn't see more than 30 feet in front of you. It felt like it was living on Mars. And so I get on the radio and I call and I say, I need aircraft to try to put a perimeter around me. And they said, that's great. There's no aircraft in the entire country because the weather's so bad. So I put down my radio, I pick up and set in my M4. And it's a really good thing that I did because that's when the first time a guy popped out of a door and pointed his AK-47 at me. And the reason I'm here is because I'm a better shot than he is. I could tell you the one where I picked up an AK-47 because my M4 ran out of bullets because I shot it so much. And I learned that AK-47s suck and they can't hit anything. I could tell you the one where when you shack an SA-6 and those missiles cook off, it makes an amazing explosion. I could tell you those stories. But what I'd like to do now is get a little bit practical. Because as you sit there and you listen to me, I know I did it. I was there 30 years ago. And you listen to these stories, I know the question you're asking yourself. Do I have what it takes? If I was thrown into this or something like it, could I have the courage to overcome fear? Could I have the courage to be decisive in battle? Could I have the courage to overcome failure? Even when it's not even really fully your fault. Well, I can tell you the answer. The answer is yes. The answer is you absolutely do have what it takes. You absolutely can do exactly what I did. I'm ordinary. I'm not special. I just stepped up when it was time. But I think there's a few things that you can do now to prepare you when called upon when the flag goes up and when it gets to be the hardest. I think there's a few things that we can practically implement now so that you can be ready then. I call them 4 investments. Some other people call them 4 pillars, but I call them 4 investments, 4 things that you can invest in right now. If you ask me, what should I do now so that I can be prepared then? Investment number 1. Invest in your spiritual resilience, your spiritual groundedness. Know your why. Know why you do this. Because when it gets that hard and when that fear rises, you have to remember it's worth it. I do this for a reason. For me, a lot of my why comes from my faith. It's who I am, it's how I think. And so knowing that there is a God that has a plan for me, and knowing that my personal mission statement, love God, love people, I can do as a pilot, I can do it as a JTAC, I can do it standing here on a stage. I can do it as a commander. Man, it's really easy to love people when you're a commander. You got lots of them. They're counting on you. But I know my why. Find yours. Find it now before it gets hard. Invest in your spiritual groundedness. Invest in your physical fitness. John Chapman on that ridge that day didn't know that the strength in his quads was going to be the difference as to whether or not he could pump his legs and get up that hill while returning fire and being fired on in 2 feet of snow in Afghanistan. But he had made the investment so that when he was called on, he was ready. Invest in your physical fitness. Invest in your mental toughness. How do you do that? How do you invest in your mental toughness? Do hard things. Deliberately. Pull an all-nighter. Then wake up the next morning and get a good grade on the SAMI. Fail at something. Try really hard at something and suck and get better. Sign up for something really hard, like an Ironman. You can do it. I'm running my first Spartan race next week. I don't know how I'm going to do, but it's a hard thing. My whole wing staff is doing it together. Some of us, we might suck, but we'll get better. Invest in your mental toughness. Do hard things. Do them as teams. Because the last investment is investing in your social connectedness. Because you can't do this alone. You need a community of people around you to help pick you up. Because you will fall. Because you will fail. Because when you get back from that time, in that place, and you run into Kim Campbell, and you say, I'm sorry. She offers you her hand and said, I knew what I was getting into. It's not your fault, Coke. I got you. Get back up. And I have lived investing in these things and proving that it's worth it. Let me finish with one last story. Because I know that investing in these 4 things, spiritual groundedness, physical fitness, mental toughness, and social connectedness will be the things that will get you prepared for when life throws a curveball at you in the future. And life will throw a curveball at you in the future. Because I did those things, and then life threw a curveball at me. 2019, fall. I'm running across a soccer field, coaching my son's soccer team. And I shout out to give a command, to tell them what to do, and my voice knocks me over. Lose balance. It was one of multiple different really weird symptoms that I had started to get. I was developing something that no doctor could figure out what the heck was wrong with me. I started to feel when I would exercise, my heartbeat in my chest would become so loud that it felt like there was someone with a hammer inside my body slamming it against my head. And my own voice and my own activity started to give me blurry vision and splitting headaches every single day. And I went from doctor to doctor to doctor to try to figure out what was going on. And then I started where every day I was losing my balance. Every day I couldn't figure out which way was up. And I was miserable. And finally, in December of 2019, I was diagnosed with a thing called superior semicircular canal dehiscence syndrome. You've got 6 gyros in your head, your semicircular canals. They give you balance. Fluid that moves through them, they're literally gyros. One of mine had an extra hole in it, and for some reason, it had given way. And so my balance was off. My voice was connected to my vestibular system, and so every time I talked, I would throw myself off balance. I couldn't raise my voice above basically a whisper. The only remedy, the only fix for this is to cut a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch hole in the side of your skull, go in, pick up your brain, find that semicircular canal from above, because that's where the hole is, and jam it full of bone shards, tissue, and glue. Patch you back up, completely fill the thing, so you basically take those 6 gyros and you deliberately break one of them completely. You get all the fluid out of it, you fill it completely so it doesn't work at all. You patch yourself back up, put some titanium to hold the thing back together, slap you on the butt, but 5 gyros and 6 gyros is not the same, and so then you got to start learning how to walk again. So in July of 2020, right in the midst of COVID, my wife drove me to Johns Hopkins Medical, and she dropped me off. Nope, she didn't get to go in with me. She dropped me off, and when she did, she looked at me and she said, "I pray that I see you again, and I pray that when I do, you will be the same man that you are now." Because brain surgery is no joke. And the next day, after 8 hours of surgery, I woke up, and I started the process of learning how to walk again. It looks like this. They say, go stand in the corner, try not to brace yourself against the wall, don't fall over. Now move your feet close together, don't fall over. Now stand on one foot, don't fall over. Now dim the lights, don't fall over. Now close your eyes, don't fall over. Stand on a balance board. Now start walking. And inch by inch, step by step, day by day, I gradually learned, I gradually grew, I gradually recovered with some of the best vestibular therapists you can possibly imagine at Walter Reed Medical Center. And 7 months later, they took me down to the place where I had practiced so many times to put me on my final test. It was in the computer-aided robotic environment. Picture a double-wide treadmill on a fully articulating hydraulic platform with a superstructure over top so you could put climbing gear on so that if you fell over, you wouldn't fall off. And in front of you, there's a 2-story high, 270-degree TV screen so that they can project whatever they want and throw whatever problem set they have at you. On that day, I had gone surfing with fish jumping out, trying to knock me off the surfboard. They had spun lines in front of me, and on that day it was, I need you to run through the forest on a swinging rope bridge while batting away insects. And so I went jogging on that treadmill And I did the final test, and I walk out that thing, and my doctor and my therapist both handed me a letter that said, we recommend you for full reinstatement for pilot status. You can stay in the Air Force, you don't have to go to an MEB, and you can go back to flying. 7 months. 7 months after that, I got picked up to be the first Air Support Operations Group Commander and lead the Tactical Air Control Party Enterprise in the Pacific. And after that, I got put into this job where I get to run the entire TACP in the continental United States. How did I get there? How do you get through that hard thing? It's because I invested in my spiritual groundedness, my physical fitness, my mental toughness, and my social connectedness. Because you see, when you're going through something like that, when your heart feels like a hammer inside your body and you don't work out for 2 years, you got to rely on the physical fitness that you'd had prior to that. And you got to know your why. That even though being able to be a pilot, heck, even being able to be in the Air Force seems like a dream in the future. That you know that you've done hard things and you can do them again. And that you know that you can love God and you can love people whether you're in the Air Force or out of the Air Force, whether you're a pilot, whether you're a TACP, or whether you're anything else. And you have drive to keep going. And you can rely on that community that you have. I could turn to the youth pastor at my church and say, would you raise my children for a while because dad's going to be out? And I could turn to my coworkers and say, I'm going to have to take some time off. And one of them steps up and says, hey, Coke, I got you. I'm going to delay my retirement. I just put in my papers, but they'll let me pull them. So I'll stay, I'll do your job, and when you get back, then I'll retire. The community around me rallied. So my life, my story, and yours will be different. My story testifies that with the right investments now, you can be ready later. You can be ready for any curveball that gets thrown your way. Do you believe that? Do you believe in yourself? Because what I've come to know, what I've come to learn, what I've come to believe is that the Air Force, we've got all this amazing technology, right? We've got B-21s, the F-47's on its way. Hell, the A-10's even a freaking marvel of technology. We've got amazing technology. But the Air Force does not put its trust in its technology. It puts its trust in its people. The Air Force believes in you. It believes the grit that got you here will get you there. It believes that you will make the investments so that you will be ready. It believes that it can trust in you. It trusted in me, an ordinary Air Force Academy grad. Because Air Force Academy grads are anything but ordinary. You're going to be one soon. I'm looking forward to seeing that. Thanks for your time. Thanks for listening today. I appreciate it. It is an honor, a true honor, to be able to stand up and share some of my life with you.